Very good evening. I hope you're all doing great. I'm so excited for this particular podcast since very beginning because today I have one of my all-time favorite cricketer back then, Mr. Daryll Cullinan, who needs no introduction in the cricketing fraternity, but otherwise is one of the legendary South African cricketer, deadliest middle order batsman that I have seen with highest amount of patience and yes, and now also being a corporate leader. I should tell this interaction. It was thanks to social media, especially the LinkedIn. I sent him the connect, and within few seconds, he was able to accept my request. And then I dropped him a message saying that I'm so and so, and he was so rapidly, replied back to me with all the credentials. And within no time, I think this just last month I got connected, and today we are here for these wonderful interactions. I'm really, really honored on behalf of the GIBS group, the students, the faculty, and the management. I extend my heartfelt welcome to Mr. Daryll Cullinan. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor, and I'm honored that you feel I have something of value to add. So I look forward to this discussion. But
Great.
it is indeed, you're a recognized global institute in terms of business studies. So the
Mhm.
honor is mine. Thank you.
Likewise, sir. We have coined this very beautifully. We have named it as the second innings leadership lessons beyond cricket. Well, I don't think there can be any better person at this point of time than Daryll Cullinan to be speaking about this. So, how we have designed this session today is that I will be posting a few questions to Mr. Cullinan for about next 40 minutes, and then the forum will be open for the students to post your questions to my inbox. And on behalf of all of you, I would take those questions with Mr. Cullinan at the end. And overall, this session would be concluded in 1 hour, but I'm sure in a short span of time, there would be loads of takeaways for all of us who are listening to Mr. Daryll Cullinan. Well, Mr. Cullinan, GIBS is one of the premium institutes in Bangalore, and we have 1,000 plus students, multiple campuses, multiple programs. And IRE, Innovation, Research, and Entrepreneurship, has been a flagship program of GIBS, where we believe as a moral, responsible business school, we have to nurture tomorrow's leaders, we have to nurture tomorrow's entrepreneurs, and we are very happy to mention that we have nurtured a lot many entrepreneurs who have come out with their own successful ventures in the last few years. I'm very happy to note that the students have, set up their own ventures, running it very successfully. We have been responsible for many startups that has taken place in Bangalore, and that's the ultimate agenda what GIBS had through IRE program. So we just don't do physical sessions, workshops, seminars. We also invite experts like you. We have conducted 100 plus global webinars like this, the professionals like you who have come and interacted with our students, and post which we also upload this in our official YouTube channel, because in education I always believe it's all about sharing. This interaction must be viewed by the student fraternity of India, not just of the GIBS Business School. That has been our motto, and that's how we have been driving in GIBS since the last 12 years now. So yes, I'm all happy and excited. So Daryll, I will be happy to post you some of the questions. To begin with, of course, your journey back to the cricketing days, and I'll take you through your corporate journey as well. So yes, looking back, what inspired a young Daryll Cullinan of dream, representing South Africa, and what values shaped you in the early years? I really love to know this.
I just lost you there for a moment. You're back.
All right. I'm okay now.
Okay, great. I just froze for a moment there. I hope it's not a connection issue on my side. If I think back, just to answer that question, I mean, I grew up in a very traditional style of upbringing in South Africa. It was a rural town. I went to a good English school, Queen's College, named after Queen Victoria. So it was based on those traditional values: hard work, discipline, respect. And sport was a big part of that school, particularly cricket. And we did rugby and athletics during the winter. So you'd find that style in classes school throughout South Africa and probably globally. But it was very fortunate that I found myself at that time going to school like that. And I guess I always from a young age had a burning desire to do something, to be famous. Was it to be a cricketer? I don't know. But I wanted to be famous. And remember that I grew up in apartheid South Africa. So till the age of, I debuted at 26, till the age of 25. And I'd been playing first class cricket since I was 16. So I'd had 10 years of first class cricket. At that stage, I was thinking, well, I need to get a job now. I've had 10 years. It was pretty much an amateur setup. You know, you weren't earning big money to be able to be successful with that. And then literally overnight, as we know, things changed. So that opened up the whole door and the opportunity to play international cricket. So I just was fortunate to be born at the right time, still to have got to play international cricket and a fair amount of that. But to get back to the question, I just think there was a burning desire. Do you teach someone that? Is it there? I'm not sure. I don't actually know, but I was determined something sport wise. And it had to be cricket ultimately in the end. My father and the environment pushed me in that direction. So I'm very grateful for firstly going to good school, good values, a good family, and got the opportunity to represent my country.
Lovely. Indeed, pleasure. I mean, I should definitely add on a point over here. I have watched your batting live in the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore way back in the 2000, if I'm right, or the late 90s. And I was always praying for your wicket.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was fortunate. I tended to have a good run against India, home and away.
Mhm.
So one or two of those innings are often brought up, which just again highlights the fascination and the interest India has with cricket, particularly stats and past players. So it's very humbling. To this day, I'll go and people remind me of particular situations. It's unavoidable when it comes to India.
No doubt. I mean, it's considered as a religion in our country over here. There's a huge praise and fan base out here for the cricket. Well, I do remember, Cullinan, yours
Hmm.
were the time that you played for South Africa was considered to be the deadliest team of South Africa. My goodness, I remember Alan Donald, Lance Krusner, or I even remember Andrew Hudson, Gary Kirsten, and two down Daryll Cullinan, and you had Jonty Rhodes. Wow, what a side it was! What a side! How do you rate on the scale of 10 the side that you played compared to the side that South Africa has now?
Oh, we beat them within 3 days, Test cricket. I'm not joking. I think we would. No, no, no. Look, it's a different game. We were very fortunate that we got the opportunity to play. I
Mhm.
think of, I think of the guys that I played with who never got the opportunity. Then all the players who just simply because of apartheid would never even show any opportunity. So people say, well, would you have played today? I'd say, well, if I think back to the past, I did get the opportunity at least to play, which I'm eternally grateful for. But it was a good side. We came out of a good first class system, very competitive first class system. So unlike today, so it's more by design. If you look at first class cricket globally, is it at its strength? Well, it's not going to be at its strength because half of those that would be playing would be on international duty, franchise duty. So a lot of first class cricket around the world is just sort of very good club cricket. And that's no reflection on the talent. That's just the way it is. But in our situation, because of the lack of international cricket, right down to club cricket was hugely competitive. So when the opportunity came to play, we were pretty much hardened, seasoned professionals. And I mean, that was a very, very good side. We had depth in talent. And it was remarkable that literally we walked in and my first tour to Sri Lanka, I think we had 32 test matches amongst us. And I think Kepler Vessels was 29 of those, something like that. So we were pretty much new to it all. So it was a very exciting time and fortunate, we were fortunate. And I was also very fortunate to have played amongst some really, really good cricketers that would have held their own in any era.
Do you also see the downfall of the red ball cricket? I'm sorry to say that, but yes, Test cricket is losing
Hmm.
its charm. Do you agree that?
I do. I just this last week or so I did a piece for Crick Info, just speaking about Test cricket, red ball cricket, and batting techniques and how they've become eroded. In some ways, good, some ways not. But I don't see. If you had to ask me honestly, I don't see where Test cricket's going to fit in. I think it's dying a death. It'll be 4 days soon. We may see different formats. Select series would become the ones to watch. But there's a lot of inconsequential cricket, test red ball cricket being played that really adds no value. It finds itself in a very difficult position. And I do most of the last 20 years, most of my cricket work has been with young kids from the age of 5. I have 2 young boys. They don't relate to test cricket. They see cricket as T20. They speak of the IPL. They know of the players involved in that. So it's not the pinnacle. And if I was 19 today, it wouldn't be the pinnacle for me either. Why would you put yourself through the grind and the hard work of preparing to play test cricket when you can earn $1 million practicing hitting half volleys and length balls for 6 and strengthening your arms and body to handle a heavier bat, and you travel the world and you go to exotic places, countries we didn't really have that privilege to enjoy. Now, the India of the past and the India today, India today is the most magnificent tour. We never got to go to the beautiful cities. It's so more of the play. There's more to it than not to say that there wasn't. But no, I don't think Test cricket will be played much within 5 to 10 years, to be honest with you. And I actually don't see where it fits in anymore. It'll become a sideshow unless you pay players big money. There's a whole lot to it. But ultimately you've got to compensate them to play Test cricket very well that may not meet franchise cricket standards and levels, but particularly well for them to make that choice. Because it makes no sense to commit your talent to something that's not going to pay at the end of the day. You get the badge, you get the T-shirt, and then you move on pretty quickly after that, because that also loses its appeal, becomes a grind and a job. So you'll go where the money takes you. That's fair with me.
Absolutely, yes. By the way, you mentioned about IPL. Do you watch IPL?
I do occasionally, but I don't enjoy it anymore. It's got too long. You're pressing almost 4 hours now. The whole purpose of T20, I played two seasons in South Africa when it first started. Yeah, so we had to finish an innings in I think it was 2 hours 20, 15. It was fast. It struck me as a very fast game. You couldn't be sole alone in making decisions. Everyone had to be able to make decisions quickly on their feet and move. So I really enjoyed it. But now, see, IPL games are pushing 4 hours, and now you're going to have more cricket. I think IPL's on the slide, to be honest with you. They need to get back to, you need to make it get back to 3 hours. But we know there's commercial forces driving that it will never be. But, that's not my opinion. Look at the stats. Viewership and ratings were down, and that's what says it all, tells the story. Viewership and ratings are down. It's too long, guys. You need to shorten it.
Great. Coming back to you, Daryll. Any sports teaches you success management or failure management, because sports is all about ups and downs. So if I can ask you this question, which setback taught you the most valuable lesson, and how did it really shape you to build your character?
Yeah, I've had a few, eh? I think selections when you feel you should have made a team. Probably the biggest one in my life was 92. I believed I should have gone to that World Cup. I wasn't selected. It just, I think at that given time, perhaps I wasn't good enough for playing well enough, but I certainly had a track record behind me which suggested that
was captained by Hansi Crony, if I'm right?
No, Vessels. It was Vessels.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think if from a playing perspective, I think of my test career against Australia, and everyone knows my story with Shane Warne and that. That to me was a big disappointment, because ultimately you want to be challenged and be up against the very best of your time. And in Test cricket, they were. And, that's been something that I look back on and ask myself many times, what could I have done? What could I have done differently? I have my own sort of answers about that, but it is what it is. But to have failed against the very best of the day. But then if I look at my career as a whole, it wasn't too bad. But if there's something that perhaps I would have liked to have changed, there would have been less of something else, but to have at least been considered successful against the best team, the test team of your time. So, whoever has had the perfect career, there've been very, very few, and I wasn't good enough to have the perfect career.
Right. This is my favorite question because,
Hmm.
you are known for this, playing under pressure. The best part for a middle order batsman like you come into a situation where it's huge responsibility on your shoulder, right? So how did you learn to perform under immense pressure? And can you tell me what can business leader learn from this mindset? If I am linking cricket and leaders on the topic of pressure management.
Well, there's so much help today. In the old days, I guess when I started, you relied on the experience of understanding what pressure was from former players. So that
Mhm.
connection, having mentorship around you was hugely important. So I would firstly say that today there's so much available. So there's all sorts of techniques and methods. You just got to go online and Google the word how do I handle pressure, and you'll get all sorts of schools and thoughts and courses on how to deal with it. I think ultimately you can't run away from it. The very best I've found and believe they thrive under pressure. I do believe there are some that thrive under pressure. There's some that learn to work with it. I think everyone needs to know how to handle it. But the moment you try to ignore it or try to shelve it somewhere else, I think that's when you run into difficulties, anxiety issues. So I think facing it now, I always remember when I was younger, the quote by Michael Johnson, the athlete, the 200 and 400-meter athlete in his book. He starts out where he says, well, winning a gold medal in the blocks to be the first guy to win, I think 200 and 400, that's pressure. So, okay, I'm going to face it and I'm going to deal with it. And the worst advice I hear coaches give players is, oh, it's just another game. Don't think about it. Oh my God, that's the worst you can tell a child. Don't think about it because it's real and it's there. But I think you either, in time, you're pretty much going to work out, can you handle it? Can you handle the levels of the pressure? But I think having coping mechanisms and training the mind and knowing what potentially you're going to face and being flexible about it. But there's so much out there today. That's the beauty of the world we're living in right now. And I think is to be able to find a way that you're able to deal with it. And there are various ways. But with it, I would say the most fundamental is your emotional regulation around it. That's a key factor under stress and pressure. And I think that's a hallmark of the really good leaders is emotional regulation. And I think that would apply on the field or in the boardroom or as a leader, because I do think the very best are emotionally strong, emotional IQ, very strong. They're able to always see it for what it is, but within that, they're still themselves. But who can handle pressure? It's also a thing, well, if you have great skills and you get what's done and you've got an answer for every situation, people naturally would look and say, oh, he handles pressure well. Maybe he doesn't. He just has such amazing skills that circumvent any issue and problem in front of him, and he just does it.
True.
And you know, I mean, I always had an interest in golf, and I use this analogy. Tiger Woods, I think, off the box has been not in the top 50 of the tee box in the history of the PGA. I might be wrong, but he's known as one of the best scramblers that's ever played, probably the best scrambler that's ever played the game. And that's opinions that come from those who know the game. So Tiger could get himself out of any situation. And when he did, people say, oh, he handles the pressure so well. He stuck behind a tree, amazing. And he just got the skills to do it. So that's one way of saying it. So are you so skilled that pressure doesn't become a factor?
True.
Or if you're not that skilled enough, because you don't have that ability, what are your coping mechanisms? How do you deal with it? I'd be fortunate for anyone. There's so much information, but
Absolutely.
you need to face it with a plan.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will get the better of you.
Right. Daryl, the session is all about leadership today. So, do you
Yeah.
believe leadership is holding a position, or do you believe it's all about influencing people? Can you recollect something of this quote in
Yeah.
your cricketing life?
You know, if if people are listening, you're leading. That's the way I see it, and
As
we
simple as
all
that.
I wanted to, before I retired, wanted to be a captain. And I think and I got 2 years of it, and I don't think I was a particularly good captain. So once you get over the fact that I want a title, and I think from a corporate perspective, we all want to be the boss. We all at some stage want to lead. I don't think it's quite as glamorous for a start as it's made out to be. But so, what is a title? What does a title represent? And if you don't have the title, are you still a leader? Is leadership shared in a team? Let's say whether it's a corporate team or a cricket team. But I think ultimately, if you people are listening, you're leading. Be your own leader is the best advice that I could possibly give. You by not having a title doesn't mean to say you opt out of influence. You still have an influence. And if I was the leader of a team, I would want people to be influential. What I've seen in corporate is some take great pride in saying, well, we're good leaders because we don't micromanage. It's kind of out of fashion for a long time now. But you know what? Micromanagement, I think they misunderstand it because ultimately they're still going to influence the decision. So what are you? You're just actually doing my work for me. That's micromanagement in terms of their opinion, because you're not going to do anything unless I give the yes or no. But I think today, if you're proactive and you lead and you want to be listened to, want to be heard, and I don't think necessarily leadership carries a title. But if you carry that title, I do believe that it does come with responsibility in certain attributes. There's no doubt there are some better leaders than others. If I think of my playing career, the best leaders, some of them led by proxy, and they acknowledged that that was the fact. But they took responsibility ultimately where the buck finally stopped somewhere. And I find particularly it's much easier to hide it in corporate, particularly when it's larger, that no one really knows where the buck stops. And I even see it in cricket today where you have a batting coach, a bowling coach, fielding coach, assistant coach, and whatever. So they trot out when the batting's not good, they trot out the batting coach. When the bowling has been suspect, they trot out the bowling coach. So there's leadership by shared ownership of that. But ultimately, when I look for leadership without a title that can respect that there are those around that are leaders. And then if they have a title, I want to see ultimately the buck stops with you.
Absolutely. While you were answering, you mentioned the term good captain. So, can I know the definition of a good captain of Daryll Cullinan?
A good captain, I lead by example. If you had to ask me in a corporate world as well, for me, one of the biggest things, you've got to lead by example. You've got to walk the talk. You've got to not ask something of someone that you would not be prepared to do. I think you've got to be honest and trustworthy, particularly trustworthy, approachable. I think that's hugely important. But a good captain ultimately for me would be someone that I would respect, that would lead by example, and is there for his team. No, I don't. I think we tend to confuse some of the most basic principles, which I still believe that apply to today when it comes to issues around leadership and example. Basic common values I found in my life over time as I've listened and watched, read and heard, traveled a bit and seen, been in boardrooms, played cricket, followed comments. This most successful still come down to very, very good basic values that you can thank your school, your parents for.
So, can I make the statement? According to Daryll Cullinan, a good captain, the success is also, I mean, the good captain is not defined by the number of trophies that you have won.
Look, we live in a world where that is important, and you also, if we say right, we define success by trophies, you're only also as good as your team as well. A good captain's not going to lead an ordinary team to great success. So, in terms of what that team is in the position and who's appointed the captain and overall, so what are they going to define success by? And that's why you'll see lifespans of, say, EPL, English Premier League coaches, what, a season and a half. So it depends on the organization, I guess, and we unpack philosophy, what their intentions are. Is it purely driven by the bottom line? So If you lose, you're out. If you're winning and we put trophies, that's where it is. So unfortunately, if you talk a leader, when the team's winning, it's the team that's doing the work. But when the team's losing, the coach goes. So it's a thankless job in many ways. Being a leader is a thankless job, and once you get over the ego and the title, you realize that it's a thankless job. What's your style of leadership? So what does that fit into, again, in terms of what is our organization all about? So be careful who you choose and where you want to go and who you want to lead, because that can certainly either make or break your reputation.
Well, Daryl, I'm sure you have gone through this. How do you personally deal with failure, criticisms, and public expectations, especially when millions are watching you on the field? Have you faced it?
Oh, yes. Look, I was quite outspoken, still am. I'd like to think perhaps not as much anymore. And I think today it's far worse because of social media. I think the scrutiny, it's
Yes,
within minutes, within seconds, it's out there
absolutely.
for the world to see on so many different platforms. You develop a thick skin. Ultimately, you got to see it for what it is. And I think, the issue of handling failure would be, and I learned this late in my professional career. If you attach your self-worth to success and failure, that's a big problem. And it's still very relevant because that's not driven by anything else except perhaps, your own profile, story, history, personality, and makeup. But I think if you're able to define and detach you to what your work, your role is, and what's important to you, you start to see that criticism, that failure, public expectations, and you're honest about it. Was it unjustified, or have I got myself to blame? If you're honest for yourself in that sort of regard, because we're all human, we can instinctively do and say the wrong thing. That happens, that's life. But I think if you're able to compartmentalize, well, this is me and that's that, and whatever your position or role is, you've got a better chance of seeing it for what it is and understanding it better. And what do you protect most of all?
Well, that's a bang on point. Well, of late, Daryl, I've seen a lot of athletes talking about mental resilience. I'm sure it's
Hmm.
a need of the hour now. How can young professionals develop the same level of mental toughness in today's fast changing world?
Oh, it's a big subject. That is a
Yeah, it
huge
is. It
subject.
is.
And I was just this weekend having a discussion with someone whose opinion I really respect. And we're just saying, well, can you teach someone resilience? Can I teach a young cricket kid resilience? And we both, and he's been doing it for a long time as well, and we both said no. Between us, over almost 50 years of doing this, said it's something that you see, and it's something that you find. It might be latent, something might spark it, but is it something that through a lot of self work can help refine someone? Is it resilience? Do you have an approach around resilience? And when the going gets really tough, and the further you progress, you're definitely going to have to become tougher and more resilient as the demands and what you take on become greater. Resilience is a huge thing. What I can say is I see less of it today. I see less of it in kids today. The whole, the mental toughness, the issue of resilience. I think perhaps a lot of it's got to do with too much gets done for them. Helicopter parenting is a common term that they use for it. So I think someone's upbringing, being left to develop resilience from a young age, and parents and the setup that's not there to make life easy for them. We tend to probably want to make life too easy too soon. They need to fight. They need to fight and appreciate and understand what that is. But if you don't have it and you find that the going gets tough, you struggle, you're going to have to work out a way, and you may have to adjust your aspirations and what you hope to achieve. Can it be worked on? Yes. But I think ultimately there's something in some people that they just have it, is my view. They have that good old dog in them, if I can call it that, to keep fighting. because if you're going to have, aspirations, big goals, and you want to conquer the world and be the very best at what you do and travel and take up positions, you're going to need tons of it. You're going to need tons of it. And it's going to test every part of you. Otherwise, your life will shape off into different areas. And I've seen it in cricket, where a youngster that was good at school, and once they leave the comfort and the regularity and the routine of a college or university, they get out into the big, big world, and they're left to fend for themselves. Then suddenly, oh, well, my studies became more important. It was very difficult getting into practices. No, it just became too hard. That's fine. But shape it, be real about it, see it for what it is, and then understand that you're perhaps not going to achieve what you set out to achieve, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Daryll, I'm now getting into the second innings. Your
Yes.
transition from professional cricket into the corporate world is no doubt inspiring. I have two questions to you here. One, what motivated to you for this shift? Second, you could have always continued in the sport. Maybe you could have become a coach. Maybe you could have got into umpiring or the commentary. What made you to shift to the corporate world?
Well, I had no choice. Let's be honest. I did for a few years, did some commentary work, did some media work, and I guess behind that all, like, I had visions of owning my own business one day, or entrepreneurial in my thinking that something would come along and do. So the transition sort of into sales was probably more one that was enforced. Those were the options that are available, and invariably using someone who has a past who people can relate to, using if I can call it the name as such, transferred easily into business and sales and marketing, call it new business development, or whatever the terminology they use today. I've found that I've enjoyed that. I think it's made sense, the ability to represent something, sell it, understand some of the key basics of selling, whether it's from cold calling to presenting, to being able to enter a boardroom, meet with senior executives, right down to the man on the floor, and being able to sell something. If I look back, though, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology and philosophy. And it's the only time that sort of really became significant when I spent some time in Saudi Arabia. It did have an impact in terms of being degreed, being able to work in the country. But if I look back, I probably would have been just if not better, definitely better. I loved working, always have with my hands, becoming a tradesman, and no disrespect in that regard. So the ability to produce a second skill is something that I would encourage even students today. Develop a second skill that you can commercialize. Because the reality of people like me is that, particularly my era, who, you didn't make money at 40, 38, 40 when it all comes to an end to live comfortably. It was never going to happen. But our very best years spent on the skill that we had. Our very best years were behind us. And when, my sport got me into college, got me into university, I was the guy buying the pizzas and buying the beers. And the guys that were on student loans and that sort of thing, when they got to 38, 40, they were now at directorship level. They had made their mistakes. They now own businesses. And that would sustain them as it has done today. As a professional sportsman, that comes to an end. So the ability
Was
to...
it was it challenging to redefine yourself beyond cricket?
Very much so. And I think it's a challenge a lot of professional sportsmen face. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think this is where the mental health issues come in, is that nothing will ever replace that high, that
Absolutely.
thrill, that something as at times tightrope stuff, like professional sport at the highest level, and the world's watching. Nothing's ever going to, and will not find that again. Very few will ever, in whatever they do, no matter how much money they've got. But that challenge, and that was the time spent on that. And I think that's where it leaves a massive void. And that realization came later to me in life, was that you seek opportunities outside of sport, you get into the corporate world, but nothing ever kind of felt right. or has felt right. But what you're never going to have got out of that future, what you had. And I think that's where lots struggle. They mentally struggle to replace that thrill and excitement, which was your drug, really. The thrill of excitement, of performance, failure, success, and in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult to explain that feeling unless you've been in it. And I think too, you probably found the top corporate guys as well, who leave something that such intensity, they've been top performers and retire, and they can't keep their life together because they just can't find anything and never will find something to probably replace it. And really, unless they have something specific that they know they want to do and go to, and that's not always easy to find for everyone. So it is a massive transition. If I had it over, I would have equipped myself with a second skill, even a very, very basic skill that I know that I could instantly commercialize.
With the way you answered this question, can I make the statement, Mr. Daryll? There was absolutely no regret.
In terms of what no regret. Would I?
Transition to the corporate.
No, no, not at all. There were opportunities which came my way,
Mm-hmm.
which would significantly have made a difference 20 years later. But in hindsight, everyone's a genius. Everyone has a story to tell that, gosh, in hindsight, had I only done this or knew that. But the
True.
transition into what, in terms of corporate and the various parts to it, you needed to be specifically skilled to be able to become an accountant, to become someone like that. And when your most productive years of your life are doing what you've always wanted to do, that would be very, very difficult. But it's allowed me a very diverse life. I've recently worked in Saudi, I've worked in South Africa across various industries. So I'd like to think there's a fairly polished individual that has been the result of all that. Because ultimately, what do you have to show for yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've been into cricket at the highest level for a very long time, representing the country. Your statistics are amazing. Which skills from cricket have proved to be the most valuable in your corporate and professional career?
I would say back to things like resilience, dealing with pressure. I
Absolutely.
think dealing with, being developing a persona through sport that separates itself from what's out there. So you've got your professional face, your professional role, being able to clearly separate those two. So you deal with rejection, and particularly in sales, you deal with rejection often. So I think my past has helped me tremendously in that. The value of connected relationships. I think in sport, you see that value, whether it's on a personal level or those around sport. And I think if you carry that into the corporate world, that's one of the transferable skills, I would definitely say. The ability to be able to identify and establish a strong connected network and relationship building, which I think is very, very important. But ultimately, nothing comes easy, and the higher you want to go, the more you want to achieve. The same values that made you successful in sport will make you successful in business.
Absolutely. I've come across many professionals who always fear change, right?
Mm.
So, what advice would you give to the people who are entering their second innings in their life or their career? We love being in the comfort zone. We all fear change. So, what advice would you give?
Yeah, yeah. It's look, some are just always going to fear change. You're going to get personalities that will always seek the comfortable route, the safe route, and that's just their
Mhm.
makeup. You're not going to change that. Some go to the extreme on the other side. Um, I think it's also circumstantial change. You may stage in your life where you have a family, you need to support a family. Ideally, if you'd love change, and it's not possible, you just got to suck it up and keep doing what you're doing. I think we are quite seduced in today's world by follow your dreams, follow your passions, don't be scared, do this, do that. No, well, you wipe your eyes out and it doesn't pay. So I think change, if anything, I would suggest that know what you're moving to before you leave what you have. The risk of change, unless there's going to be no fallout around you, then change. But make sure you have what you've got in hand is confirmed. Then change becomes more easier. But as I said, we're seduced by these stories, and you see it all over. Suddenly left my high-flying job, went into the wilderness, built a tree house, and lived off the land. These are Hollywood stuff and stories. So change, there's risk associated. It's got to be calculated. But you get to the point. I don't know about you, but you get to a stage in my life where you think, well, I've learned that through change, don't be scared of change. There's always something on the other side. There's always another door that opens up. And if you of that sort of nature, what do you have to show? Lack of change might have offered you something which you maybe don't have, but you don't have a story to tell.
True. The most important activity, whether a captain in the cricket field or an executive of a corporate, what they do is the most important activity, as I call, is the decision making, right? I'm sure you agree with this. So how do you approach decision making in high pressure situations? I'm sure you've come across many.
Yeah, look, I think in if you take cricket or sport, it's the speed. Let's just first look at the speed of the decision making. So in sport, it's a live match, decisions get made. Yes, there'll be decisions made in terms of strategy, in terms of tactical decisions, how to approach the game. But come the event, it's live and it's real. And you need to be able to think on your feet and make a call. Invariably, the captain's going to make that call. In corporate, that same decision could take 18 months. So it's whilst certain, I would say, attributes do exist which flow across both aspects in terms of decision making. If I had to say, well, how are we going to make the best decision? Now, I mean, I have a friend who's in finance, it's 8,000 employees. It's driven by KPIs and it's driven by turnover, and it's systematic in terms of making decisions, whether who to employ, what to do next. And the brief is just fed down the chain. Right, that's what we're going to do. Those are sorts of decision making to be made. Cricket, you're managing a team, 11 to 20 people. It's far more intimate, close, it's real. But if I had to sort of draw a line between the two and say, fine, what commonalities can there be under the circumstances? I think you need to know your business. You need to know your team. You need to know it very, very well. You need to have intimate knowledge. You need to have the right people around you that have been appointed directly, indirectly by you. So that sphere of influence is wide beyond where you are. Because if you need to make quick decisions, and this is the number one problem I see, and I've experienced it in corporate, where the tendency for a lot of leadership to protect their own paycheck and position is that they surround themselves with like-minded people. And I've seen it to a degree in a cricket setup. So you're not going to be challenged. You don't want to be challenged. And when you are, you see it as a threat. You'll make good decisions, but you won't be great. You won't be great. Because you need the strength. You don't need to be that insecure in your position where you want to be challenged and you have a makeup under speed where you need to be making, I guess, generally good decisions. I'm a great believer in I want people around me that can bring the skills I don't have, who can challenge, and we found a way to make that work. And my choice then, my gut feel and my experience, because I know my business, I know what I've got, I'm left to, the buck stops with me. But the moment that doesn't exist, you see decision making by proxy, you'll see decisions being delayed, you'll see, this outcome. And ultimately, no one goes anywhere, moves anywhere. The safe option is made. You're going to be good, but you won't be great.
Great. Whether it is again on the sport or whether it is in the business, one thing that we all speak very high about is the work ethics. So how important how important has the integrity been throughout your journey, both in sports as well as in the business?
Yeah, it's hugely important. ultimately that comes down to personal, it comes down to team culture, the vision, what you stand for. And at times it's going to be compromised. And there will be those that, for their own reasons, will feel that it's doable. And that challenge, that temptation will always be there. So, but I'm a great believer in ultimately ethics. Leadership leads in that they lead by example. Integrity, they lead by example. You will get found out. You won't have a long, successful career. You might have a sporadic career moving from here to there because it will catch up with you. And ultimately, who's going to serve, work, do the hard yards if they don't respect you in terms of integrity and ethics? And ultimately, I think you define yourself and you know what you will not compromise on. No job, no position, no opportunity, because you will get found out and it will come back to bite you. I mean, I had an experience where I walked into a situation where corruption and bribery was prevalent. And it immediately, within 2, 3 months, it had left me with, quite a big subject, which, cognitive dissonance. We deal with that all the time. I think probably in 70 or
Yes.
80% of most environments would deal with that. And it's not the type that, oh, I don't feel like my work today. And we all go through that. And oh, I wish I could be doing something else. And we all have those moments, but we know what drives us. But where you're having to manage what you see as questionable ethics, integrity, and then it's excused. You're not going to get the best out of people. And invariably, as in my case, it followed its natural route and it came to an end. But the underlying issue was clear questions around, I don't think that this is the way that things should be done.
Absolutely. I
So
agree.
I would always appeal. And then we saw it in our cricket, our captain Cornier went through, we found out that, there were obviously issues there. Thankfully, we didn't know because it would have been very difficult to have been playing. And I do think there were teams and players around the world that knew what was happening, but had to live and put up with that. But I think there's certain things you should always, always, no matter what the circumstances, for yourself, you will not compromise on. And integrity is number one of all.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Daryl, this interaction of ours is watched by thousands of students, let me assume, who are tomorrow's leaders. You know, what advice would you give to our students, young generations who aspire to build a very meaningful and an impactful career?
Yeah, you're living in a very exciting time. I don't need to tell you with the whole. I recently watched the AR doc it's called the AR doc on Netflix. So I think people coming into the world today, to give an example, so they discussed this with some of the leaders, some of the drivers behind AI, like so Sam Altman was one, and the one guy, I forget his name. He just said, "Well, there won't be a world in 20 years' time. We've got 18 years, and that's it." So it's a fascinating piece of work. I thought it was absolutely one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. And and the guy who made the documentary was asking probably what you're asking now. He just had a child last year and said, "Well, have I done the right thing? What will it be like then?" And the conclusion on the upside, the second half was, well, it's not going to, we'll work with it, but we'll all have to come together and decide how well we work with it. So anyone today will know what is relevant, what is going to be out there. Is my job going to be relevant? Is my degree going to be relevant? I mean, it's just scary. It's absolutely scary. I've got two boys, 12 and 13. Anyway, that's a discussion we all have every day. But I think my advice would be is that more than ever, you need to have a growth mindset. You need to want to know more. You need to be incredibly curious. You can't be blinkered. And you need to be on top of things. You need to be understanding what is relevant, where it's going. And I think if ever there was a time, for me, the number one skill is creativity. And that's driven a lot by curiosity. You need to want to know as much as you can and be on top of it. because your career could be shaped very differently and you don't want to be left wanting. It's an incredibly exciting time. But I think if you're able to define, understand where you want to go, what you stand for, what you believe in, what you'll put up with, where that's going to go, and you also you embrace the situation with an open mind, I think you're going to be successful. And you fix yourself to what's of value to you. The rest is just noise. Trust me, the rest is just noise. The rest can be handled. You'll be surprised. Tomorrow can often be the better day, the best day, when today perhaps feels like it's not going to be. But some are like that, some won't be like that. But when change does hit you and you can't deal with it, understand that, hang on, perhaps I was not looking out for it. But I think if you're really ambitious today in terms of your career and where you want to go, you have to be curious. Curiosity, I think, is huge, and a growth mindset.
Wow, excellent message. This one is an interesting one, Daryl. If you could go back and have a conversation with the 20-year-old Daryll Cullinan, what
God,
advice would you give him?
sleep on it. Sleep on it would be my best. Sleep on it. I still can't do it. I think there's so much value in just sleep on it.
Lovely. I have some
I
interesting.
can't say it better. I can't say it better. I'm sorry. I don't even want to elaborate on that point, but just sleep on it.
Sleep on it. Lovely. Before I end, before I close, I'll take a couple of top questions of the students who have put me in the chat box. I found one very interesting. What is the biggest difference between leading yourself and leading a team?
Well, I think the work goes into yourself, and then what they see, what they hear is naturally going to be your style and what you do. I think you have to lead by example. If you're clear about that, you're not going to survive. You're not going to be around for a long time. Be respected. And I think the biggest thing is that it's always a message that I had and always do have. If you take a team, like versus respect. I want to be respected. I don't necessarily want to be liked by you. It's impossible. We all come together that everyone's going to like each other. And if you do and everyone likes each other, I can tell you now, when the pressure's on, you're going to fall apart. But you may not like me, but you respect me. When the pressure's on, we'll pull together. We'll make it work. So you may not necessarily like me, but I want you to respect me. And the only way you're going to respect me is by what you see and what you hear and the example I bring. And to me, it's a basic principle and a basic value. If you go in there and lead by example and you're approachable, you're trustworthy, you work hard, you might push the laws to the limit. You want the best out of everyone, but you also want the best out of yourself. People will gravitate to you. People will want to be led by you.
I found another very interesting question from one of our students. How can we turn a career setback into a successful second innings?
Well, if you're going to aspire, you're going to deal with setbacks. Life's full of stories of, I love these stories, failed 4 times, made it again, that sort of thing. I think setbacks are inevitable because you're not going to get better without setbacks. How do you know what to do better, be better, if you never fail? It's not possible. So it's what you do with that and what you take out of it is critically important, because in every setback is an opportunity. I firmly believe that. And circumstances I know can be different, and access to this or access to that can make or break that decision. But I think ultimately the simple advice: never give up. Never give up. And take that. And I promise you, in those setbacks, you wake up, you see an opportunity, that it'll happen. And it may not happen. That's the beauty of life. It may not still not happen. You may have lived a life trying and always had setbacks, but it's a damn lot better than not trying at all.
Wow. Thank God. Now we are at the fag end of the interaction that we had, and I'm now into my all-time favorite. Some rapid fire to you. I want a quick
Okay.
answer, a short answer for these questions. All right,
Yeah.
Daryl, your favorite captain and why? It can be, let's go back to even 90s, your favorite captain and the current favorite captain in the current cricketing era.
My favorite was always going to be Hansie Cronje. I just loved playing cricket with him. He believed
Wow,
in me and was good for me, good for my career. And he led by example in terms of cricket. He
absolutely.
certainly did.
And if you want to name one best captain of the current era,
The current era, I'm trying to think who the hell captains. Um, I I could I think there's you get so many captains, Professor. There's like a red ball, a white ball captain.
let's get
I in a
into
funny way I enjoyed Ben Stokes. I must be honest.
uh-huh.
I enjoyed Ben Stokes' style of captaincy and the way he played cricket. So I'm just going to throw
Mhm.
Ben Stokes in there.
Well, lovely. Now, Virat Kohli or Herschel Gibbs?
For what? The after party or the game?
On the game.
For the
And why?
game. Um, I'm going to go Herschel Gibbs because I like
Uh-huh.
Herschel, and
Wow.
he's just as talented. But
Mhm.
no disrespect to Virat, I have utmost uh, uh, utmost respect for it. And we're on a GIBS Business School without the B, but I'll go for Herschel.
Lovely. I mean, I was a big fan of back then of Herschel Gibbs too. He was incredible, no doubt about it.
You know what? He had the game to be successful in all formats today.
Right.
Better fielder than Virat as well.
Very true. Very true. I saw your LinkedIn article which you wrote in the Crick Info on Vaibhav Suryavanshi. So how about this next question? Vaibhav Suryavanshi or Lance Klusener?
Oh, Klusner.
Klusener?
Suryavanshi can't bowl. Look,
Yeah.
we look we. It's still early days in terms of Suryavanshi. I'm a huge fan of his cricket. What a
Mhm.
talent! But
Unbelievable.
let's see.
No doubt about it. That's the a kind of, the budding cricketers that we are producing in India. I'm very happy. Let's see. I'm sure we have a great way to go. Well, one book every young leader should read, or
You
maybe
know, I
any web
found
series that you mentioned also.
oh, I gee, there are a lot, but there's one out at the moment I would strongly suggest. It's called The Captain Class. It's a
Mhm.
good book on leadership by Sam Walker. And
Wow.
he analyzes in terms of teams and sports teams and what commonalities are and found seven, came up with seven that successful teams and leadership are about. Um, and some may surprise some. There's nothing outrageous about it at all. And I
Lovely.
think it kind of fits to point in some of the messages I had today about the simple basics. So I would recommend that, The Captain Class by Sam
Wow.
Walker. And he's
Lovely.
got quite a pedigree of leadership behind himself as well.
Fantastic. I made a note of it too. Thank you, Daryl. One habit that changed your life.
Preparation,
Lovely.
preparing well.
Cricket or corporate? Where did you learn more about leadership?
I would say in sport and cricket, the type of leadership that I could admire and respect. In corporate, the type of leadership that I don't want to be.
Very true. And the last question, your biggest motivation today.
My health has just been healthy and trying to live as long as possible.
Bang on. Wow. That's indeed. Health is wealth. It's a very old saying. I think of late people have realized the importance of it now. Bang on. Great answer. So finally, when people look back at your journey, not just as an international cricketer, but also a leader and a professional, what legacy would you like to leave behind, Daryl Cullinan?
I've kind of lived who I am. I've obviously been controversial, would love to have done a few things differently, but I was true to who I've always been, and I've been unapologetic at times about that. And I don't know what else could have been different.
Lovely. Fantastic. Bang on. I think it's sharp 6 p.m. and we ended our agenda. The time management was at its best. Daryl, before we decide on the interaction, every interaction we have in our mind a list of agendas and takeaways. And today's interaction, it was met 100%. 100%.
Thank you.
Fantastic takeaways, loads of qualitative takeaways for my students, for my budding entrepreneurs, for my budding leaders. I'm sure they're going to inculcate the life lessons that you have shared. It's going to be a great turnaround for them in their career, in their personal life as well. Daryl, it was a dream come true for me in person to have met you, to have interacted with you, to have been invited to you here for this IRE session hosted by GIBS Business School. I have one last wish. I would really want to host you in my campus in person one day in India. I'm sure it's going to be there.
I would love to come. I'm sure it will actually. Bangalore is one of my favorite cities,
I know
Bengaluru.
that.
The weather's always fantastic.
Absolutely. When everyone speaks about Bangalore, the first thing they speak about is about the weather.
The weather's
And
good and great
absolutely,
restaurants, great
always,
bars,
carries the
lovely
same
life,
charisma
lovely
even
life.
now. So I wish to see you soon
Fantastic.
in Bangalore, Daryl.
We will.
I'll take the
Thank
pleasure
you.
of hosting you very soon. And the in-person interaction also with the students and the professors of the institute, that would be another big thing for us. Well, otherwise,
Our
thank
pleasure.
you so much, Daryl. It was pleasure hosting you for a short interaction, but very impactful interaction. On behalf
Thank
of
you.
all the ones who have joined in this session, and on behalf of the GIBS management, students, and the professor, let me extend my heartfelt thanks for the wonderful interaction that we had. Indeed,
Thank you.
incredible, awesome, no words to explain. Thank you so much. I look forward to many more interactions with you, Daryl, in the coming days.
Thank you very much, and all the best to all of you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Daryl. I
Bye.
wish you the great health. Thanks a lot,
Thank
everyone.
you.
I also thank all the audience who have joined us, listened patiently, and also put some amazing questions to me. Thank you. I mean, it's a shortage of time. I couldn't take much questions, but yes, I'm sure there are a lot of takeaways from the interaction. For those who have not joined or subscribed our channels, please do that. Please like and subscribe in GIBS Business School and GIBS IRE Talks in all our platforms. And this session of Daryll Cullinan will also be aired very soon in the official YouTube channel of GIBS. Until then, this is Professor Guru Prasad signing off, and happy evening, all of you.